I'm Devorah Wallen, and I'd like to share my Tea for Two, my Torah thought for 2 minutes, more or less. This week's Torah portion is Kedoshim, which means holy ones. The first verse says, "And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the whole community of Israel, and say to them, Kedoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy, for I, your God, Hashem, am holy." The Parsha mentions the 10 Commandments, basic civil and ethical rules like not swearing falsely or defrauding a fellow, or committing robbery, or putting a stumbling block before the blind, or being unfair in judgment, etc. Then it mentions commandments that only the Jewish people are commanded to do, such as offering sacrifices and more. All these mitzvahs are holy, so what does kadosh really mean? The word kiddush, like the prayer that we say on Sabbath and festivals to inaugurate and sanctify the day, is a cognate of the word kedoshim. It's usually translated as holy and sacred, but it also contains a meaning of separate and distinct as well. In the verse above, Hashem is telling the community of Israel that we must be holy because He, Hashem, is holy. We are different and distinct from other nations, and He wants us to be distinct. As it says in the prayers on our pilgrimage festivals of Sukkot, Passover, and Shavuos, "You have chosen us from all the nations," and it goes on to say, "You made us holy through your commandments," and so on. But other nations follow commandments too. Righteous people of the world take upon themselves the 7 commandments for the children of Noah, and many monotheists recognize the 10 commandments as basic moral standards. Although many of the biblical commandments are not able to be performed currently while we are in the diaspora, there are 613 mitzvahs in total that Jews are obligated in. For a Jew, being holy is not limited to visibly religious activities such as communal prayer service or during public Torah study or when using ritual objects. Holiness must be practiced in day-to-day acts of kindness and in dealing morally in society. As Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik says, morality cannot be separated from faith. The worship of God cannot be separated from morality. One of the mitzvahs in this week's Torah portion is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your fellow as yourself. Rabbi Akiva, of Talmudic fame, considers this the cardinal principle of the Torah. The word kamocha, which means as yourself, implies that one must have a strong enough self-image to be able to truly love another. If one has a negative or distorted image of himself and does not care enough about himself, he will not be able to fulfill this mitzvah completely. Although many mitzvahs are delineated in this parsha, the one mitzvah that Rabbi Akiva considers the main tenet of the Torah is the mitzvah of loving one's fellow, and it is here, in Kedoshim, implying the significant holiness in this particular mitzvah. How is holiness different for us as Jews? In other religions, the so-called holy ones escape from the mundane and physical world. Asceticism is not a virtue in the Torah way of life. According to this week's parsha, less obvious arenas can act as holy places because we infuse holiness into them. We do not need ritual objects such as the Torah, mezuzahs, and shofar as facilitators of the sacred. We can sanctify our environment and the lives of those around us through kind and ennobling day-to-day speech and other activities. Since we have a chelek elokami ma'al, a soul which is a portion of God Himself, we have the power and potential to participate with God in dignifying mundane activities. There's a basic principle from the Ramban, L'kadesh es atzmecha b'mutar lach. Sanctify yourself with that which is permissible by not being too gluttonous, yet at the same time, the Torah does not want us to be so spiritually inclined that we avoid His physical world like monks and gurus, living a monastic life of abstention and self-denial. There's a statement that says, after 120 years, when we are brought on high, we will be asked why we did not utilize what God put here in our world for enjoyment. Harav Kook once said, "There's nothing unholy. There's only the holy and the not yet holy." We are the vehicle to elevate the mundane, which do not have a means of elevation other than through our proper use. Since we were created in God's image, these objects need our boost, so to speak, to make them holy. May our efforts answer God's lofty request of Kedoshim Tihiyu, becoming God's partner in making ourselves and His world more holy.